It's 1 o'clock. Are we ready to start? I think so. I'm going to assume so. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the June 4th, 2020 Harbor District Commission special meeting. Melanie, can you do roll call, please?
Commissioner Brennan? I'll go to Commissioner Chang Corrali.
Present.
Commissioner Lorenas.
Here.
Commissioner Ryring.
Here.
Commissioner Matoush.
Here.
And let's try Commissioner Brennan.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Here. Do you
Great.
know why the video isn't working on my screen?
You've been sent a link that should ask you to start your video.
Thank you.
Oh, there you are. Great. I want to stress again that my role as chair is to make sure that we have a platform that allows us to address each item on the agenda in a thoughtful and deliberate manner. And that we maintain discipline in following proper parliamentary procedure during the meeting, and that we extend courtesy and respect to our fellow commissioners, to the staff, and to the public. This is our obligation to the public that we serve. I set forth some rules for our Zoom meetings, and we will be continuing them today in order to make sure that every commissioner is heard on the various agenda items. I will poll each commissioner in random order for each matter. Please keep your comments until it is your turn so that all of the remarks can be clearly understood and recorded. To better manage this process, all microphones will be on mute until I recognize the speaker. And this will allow each person his or her opportunity to speak without interruption during the speaker's allotted time. If you wish to make a comment, please ask the chair for recognition to speak by raising your hand on the Zoom platform. Additional comments must be regarding the agenda item at hand and should not repeat comments that you've already made. Any speaker who does not follow these parliamentary procedures will be ruled out of order. If the speaker doesn't comply with parliamentary procedures after being ruled out of order, I will place the speaker's microphone on mute. These rules treat everyone equally and fairly. Each commissioner has an opportunity to ask questions, make comments on the agenda item that's being considered. Our agenda also allows each commissioner to make general comments normally, but today we'll just be addressing the items at hand. Accordingly, these rules do not infringe on anyone's right to speak or anyone's ability to take action on the important matters before us. This should go without saying, but as we begin this meeting, I ask that we all conduct ourselves in a manner that has the public's interest at heart. This Zoom meeting is not the platform to air personal grievances. Such displays do not serve our community. They're destructive to our extraordinary staff who dedicate themselves to making our agency successful, and they are absolutely unbecoming of our board. To begin the agenda, we have 2 items on the consent calendar today. Any items pulled from consent will be heard after discussion items. Are there any comments on the consent items? I see a hand raised, James Sang Hun Lee. You have a comment on the consent items, Mr. Lee?
Sorry, I was trying to unmute.
I was just wondering, this is more of a procedural question, not related to any agenda item. I was just wondering if you're taking general public comment.
Not today.
Okay, in that case, I have a comment for the consent items. I just wanted to point out that this is the essential business the Harbor District should be focusing on in a time of COVID, not the following agenda item.
If there are no commissioner comments regarding the consent calendar, do I have a motion to accept the consent calendar? Commissioner Chang-Karali?
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
We
Can,
have a
A roll call vote.
excuse me, but I think I was muted. Can you hear me?
I hear you. Commissioner
I'm
Brennan?
sorry, can you hear me?
I hear you. Can you hear me?
Can we get the staff reports, please?
For the consent items?
Yeah,
If you want to hear the consent, if you want to hear some further information regarding the consent items, we'll move those to the end of the agenda.
okay, thank you.
All right, so we do have a motion and a second, but we will move. Essentially, you're pulling both items from the consent calendar, Commissioner Brennan.
Yes, thank you.
All right, we'll move those to the end of the agenda. All right, now for the discussion item on our agenda. Today, we are considering a resolution to censure Commissioner Sabrina Brennan for inappropriate conduct during the April 15th, 2020 regular board meeting of the San Mateo County Board of Harbor Commissioners. The resolution is attached to the agenda item and is available online. And it reads in part, whereas at the April 15th, 2020 regular board meeting of the Board of Harbor Commissioners, the chair requested that the commissioners follow proper parliamentary procedures and established rules following the remote board meeting. Specifically, each commissioner was polled in random order for turn to speak on each agenda item. Each commissioner was asked to keep their comments until it was their turn to speak, so remarks could be clearly understood and recorded. Commissioners and the public should always ask the chair for recognition to speak to avoid speaking over others. Whereas Commissioner Brennan on April 15th, 2020, at the regular board meeting of the San Mateo County Board of Harbor Commissioners, failed to yield the floor to other commissioners or to the chair and continued to speak over the other commissioners and to disrupt the meeting. Whereas Commissioner Brennan was ruled out of order on 3 separate occasions by the chair and president of the board. Whereas Commissioner Brennan continues to use the Board of Commissioner meetings to make personal attacks against Commissioner Matoush regarding alleged conduct that occurred 6 years ago and is irrelevant to the board's consideration of the public's business on the agenda. Whereas Commissioner Brennan's conduct is significantly disruptive to the board meetings and to our ability to conduct the public's business. Whereas Commissioner Brennan's conduct has brought significant negative attention to the Harbor District, as demonstrated by multiple news articles and public comments made on record by the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors. I would like to ask for a motion to censure Commissioner Brennan for her conduct. Do I have a motion for this resolution censuring Commissioner Sabrina Brennan for inappropriate conduct during the April 15th, 2020 regular board meeting?
I'll move with a minor amendment to correct the date to June 4th to make a motion. I'll make a motion to censure Commissioner Brennan for her disruptive conduct during the April 15th, 2020 regular board meeting of the Harbor Commissioners, and ask Commissioner Brennan to refrain from such disruptive conduct in the future, including using her time during district meetings for attempting to relitigate matters that have been investigated and resolved.
I'll second that motion. We have a motion and a second, and we'll now have discussion. Before I move to public comment, I'm going to give Commissioner Brennan 3 minutes to respond. Commissioner Brennan, do you have comments you'd like to make at this time?
Is this the only comment that I'm going to be able to make?
No, we're going to take public comment after your comment, and then we'll move to commissioner comments.
Okay. Well, I'd like to start by saying, can you hear me okay, first of all?
Yes, I hear you.
Thank you. So I was only just made aware of this special meeting. It was called with 24 hours notice. So I'd like to note that I have not had much time to prepare for this meeting. It was called by 3 commissioners. I was not one of those commissioners, obviously. I will also be emailing a written version of my remarks to the district, and I would like to have those written remarks attached to the minutes for this meeting. So that's a request. The resolution to censure me is intended to silence and humiliate me. This may be the first time an elected representative has been censured for complaining about sexual harassment by a fellow board member. The board member who sexually harassed me on multiple occasions will cast the deciding vote to censure me. This reminds me of past unethical and retaliatory practices from a time when Commissioner Jim Tucker was board president. Sadly, this resolution is an example of retaliation related to my 2017 sexual harassment and retaliation complaint against Commissioner Tom Mateusz and more recent retaliation complaints. The humiliation I've experienced while serving on this board is dehumanizing. The relentless retaliation I've experienced from Commissioners Mateusz, Virginia Chan-Carali, and Nancy Raring has negatively impacted my family, board work, advocacy work, and my career. I'll have more to say about how I've been impacted later. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move to public comments now. And I do see a few hands raised in the chat box. Mr. Ullum. Oh, and I should say that we're going to give the public 2 minutes to speak on the discussion items. So, Mr. Ullum.
Nancy, President Raring, there's a technical issue with Mr. Ullum's joining the meeting. Can we move to another participant as we figure that out?
Yeah, thank you, Lizzie, for letting me know. Mr. Lee, would you like to make a comment?
Good afternoon to Board President and the Commission. At a recent workshop for the capital improvements projects that you were conducting, Nancy, you mentioned that there are issues with equity when it comes to who is able to attend these public meetings. So the fact that you have called this meeting with 24 hours notice on a non-essential item during a time of COVID is highly unequitable, is highly lacking in transparency, and is an example of the type of institutional violence that is committed by people like yourself with a small modicum of power that you have through these local agencies. Your emphasis on conduct and parliamentary procedure is a way for you to hide behind these institutional processes to do violence to someone who has spoken out about sexual harassment. And no, the issue is not resolved because, as you full well know, Nancy, she said a few years ago that the process was not independent, was conducted with in-house counsel, and she did not feel heard during that process. The reason why she continues to speak out is because you, Commissioners Tom Mateusz and Commissioner Virginia Chan-Carali, continue to use this public meetings process and this forum to abuse and retaliate against her. The very least you should demand as board president is that both Virginia and Tom recuse themselves, or at the very least, Tom Matoush recuse himself from this motion and this item. For the harasser who has documented pornographic emails sent to Ms. Brennan to be allowed to vote and be the deciding vote on a censure resolution against Ms. Brennan is absolutely unacceptable and will open the district up to legal fees, which you claim to be so concerned about. And Nancy, as a member of the Town of Woodside's Architecture Review Board, you yourself racked up almost $70,000 in legal fees, rightly so, for a free speech.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Your time is up. Mr. Ullum, are you able to speak yet? Lizzie is, I
President
guess.
Ryring, I think that the technical issue is ongoing. We may need to move on to yet another participant as we continue to figure it out.
All right. Mr. Ludwig, I see a hand up.
Unmute. Yes, and I would like to thank you for being heard. And as you can see, I was not, there's some limitation in the Zoom that did not allow me to change. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I was not able to change the name. There's some limitation in the Zoom. Normally I'm able to change the name. This is actually Elise Dixon. Julian Ludwig, as I noted, is my son's name. So I am just acknowledging that there's some limitation in the Zoom. Normally I can change my name. I cannot right now. And I'm going to read a short statement. So I support Sabrina Brennan and holding a special meeting to censure her when the Harbor District is now shut down for everything except essential business. And when you couldn't even censure Tom Matoush in normal times for sexual harassment is unacceptable. Thank you for taking time to listen to my comment.
Thank you. Mr. Ratz, you have your hand up.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Fine. I have not, these remarks are just independent and based upon observations over the past number of years that I've been involved with the district. We are what we repeatedly do. So my question is, how did this special meeting come about? Who called it? Nancy, do you have an answer?
Mr. Ratz, this is your opportunity to speak to the agenda item at hand. If you don't have a comment about the agenda item at hand, we'll move on.
I do. I would like to know how the special meeting came into being.
So, Mr. Ratz, if you'd like to speak to the agenda item at hand, please do so.
I will. I feel cut off. Anyway, also President Riley, have you read the report by Mary Topliff? Yes or no?
Mr. Ratz, would you like to speak to the agenda item at hand?
And that's fine. I will. Since you will not answer my questions and participate in the discussion. The report that by Mary Topliff, despite factual error, the report concluded, quote, that is more likely than not, Tom Matoush did not engage in severe and pervasive sexually offensive behavior. Behavior does not have to be severe and pervasive to be wrong. I have read the report and found the email to be very offensive and morally and ethically offensive and corrupt to send to a fellow commissioner. Commissioner Matoush's behavior is totally unbecoming for a district commissioner. Unfortunately, today we see the results of the same failure of justice in the demonstrations regarding George Floyd. Commissioner Brennan's behavior may have been discourteous, and rather than slapping her down, we should try to understand why it occurred. Unfortunately, your proposed action today continues the pettiness, vindictiveness, and dysfunctionality within the commission and a failure to bring justice and transparency to the forefront. I was a public member of the Policy and Governance Committee, which was working to create.
Thank you, Mr. Ratz. Your time is up. We have someone here with their hand raised, phone number 650-455-7191.
Yes, good afternoon, commissioners and personnel. I have to say that I find the unethical and ludicrous behavior of Sabrina Brennan is appalling. The profane language and verbiage used by Brennan is absolutely not the place for this kind of language to be used in a meeting. The effect on the harbor, her effect on the harbor has been very expensive to the tune of over $1 million. I, for one, believe that such a person who with such unbecoming behavior should be decommissioned.
Thank you for your comment. Lizzie, did we succeed in getting Mr. Ullum unmuted?
We're still having technical issues with that profile. I'm not.
Okay. Other than Mr. Ullum, I think we've taken all the public comment that I see. Let me know if I'm missing anything.
President Reiering, please allow me to try to unmute a separate profile. Mr. Ullum is raising his hand using the app and not on the profile from which he wishes to speak. So please allow me one moment to find the profile
Of course.
that correlates to him.
Hello,
Hello, who do we have here?
this is John Ullum.
Oh, Mr. Ullum, would you like to make a public comment regarding this discussion item? Mr. Ullum, can you hear me? I guess there's still technical difficulty there. So we do have Diane has her hand raised. Diane, would you like to make a comment on this discussion item?
Hi, Nancy. I just want to say first, thank you so much for your representation. And I also want to say that I really don't agree that she should be censured, although I do believe the conduct was inappropriate and it's not something that I want to see again. I don't believe that she should be censured. Thank you.
Thank you. Are we having any success with Mr. Ullum?
The phone number associated with Mr. Ullum has disappeared from the participant list, so we may need to move forward.
Okay, we do have another hand raised here. The phone number is 619-990-7625.
Hello, good afternoon, Board President and Commissioners. This is Brent Turner calling. I just wanted to associate myself with the statements made by Mr. Lee and also mention that I don't believe that there has been, although it would be excusable under these dire circumstances, I don't believe there's been any profanity used by Commissioner Brennan that I'm aware of. And I think if we get into this issue of putting this style of putting the complainant, the victim, on trial, that we're going down the wrong road here. My final comment is I think that the commissioner that is the offender in this case should not be voting on the censure of the victim. That is something that is, I think, obvious to anybody looking at this. I don't believe this is a political issue. I think this is a morality issue. We should be very careful here to make sure that Sabrina Brennan is not further humiliated as these actions appear on their face to be retaliatory. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands raised.
President Reiering, I've located John Ullum's third profile that he's joining from, and I believe I can unmute it at this time. It's a 408 area code ending in 602. Mr. Ullum, is that you?
Yes, it is. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Lori or Lizzie, for working hard to get me into this meeting. Before Sabrina Brennan was elected, this board was the highest paid board in the state of California. Meetings routinely lasted only a half hour. Commissioners were receiving over $1,200 a month in health benefits. The taxpayers were providing health insurance for the grandson of a commissioner. Before Sabrina Brennan was elected, we had a commission defrauding people. One of the commissioners was pretending to be a commercial fisherman. The thankfully long gone commissioner tried to get an engine in his pleasure boat replaced at taxpayer expense. Before Sabrina Brennan was elected, we had a manager who drew naked pictures of staff and passed them around the office. An office that cost us twice as much as what you're paying right now for your office. Sabrina Brennan is the commissioner who exposed the waste of money.
Mr. Ullum, would you like to address this agenda item, please?
I am addressing this agenda. I'm giving you a history of Sabrina Brennan, and I'll get to explain why it is that this retribution is happening. You give me 2 more paragraphs.
Lizzie,
Before Sabrina
are you
Brennan,
ready to mute Mr. Ullum if he doesn't address the agenda item, please?
I'm
Yes,
addressing the
President
agenda item, Lizzie. Before Sabrina Brennan was elected, there was no plan to deal with the corruptly purchased crumbling pier, Romeo Pier.
Can you please
There was no
mute
plan for
Mr.
dealing.
Ullum, Lizzie? Thank you. I see a hand up, Chris Liang.
Hello, can you hear me okay? Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay, great, thanks. Thank you very much for your time. I posted my comments in the chat, so I would appreciate it if you could attach my comments to the meeting minutes. I think there is no question whether or why people are frustrated with the Harbor Commission. That you could schedule this meeting with 24-hour notice in these, when all of this stuff is going on, is an indication of the underhanded way that things are handled by Tom Matoush and Nancy and Virginia. You clearly haven't made any effort to hear from a wider group of people on this issue, and I really think that it is unfortunate. That you couldn't censure Tom Matoush in normal times, but that you decide that today, while the world is reeling from COVID and the entire country is hyper-focused on equity and equality for all, that you 3 sneak in a meeting to censure Sabrina is shameful. The Harbor District is shut down for everything except essential business, but you 3 think now is the time to go on the attack.
Ms. Lang, would you like to address this agenda item, please? We're discussing the censure of Sabrina Brennan.
And I'm addressing the same thing. I think it's a sham that you're doing this when other people should have been censured for the same reasons in the past, but you're calling her out specifically. Your actions appear retaliatory, and I don't think at the very least that Tom Matoush should be voting on this.
Thank you for your comment. I see a hand up, but I think that it's, is it Bud Rats? It says Frank Rats, but maybe Frank is, I don't know. Frank Rats, would you like to identify yourself, please? And the hand disappeared.
Mr. Rats,
right.
You've been unmuted for comment. You have to accept the unmute request that's been sent.
Yeah, it's unmuted.
Oh, he's already spoken. So we're going to move now to commissioner comments.
President Reiring, there was a member of the public that wanted to donate their 5 minutes to James Lee. I'm not sure if that's allowable.
James Lee has already spoken, and we're limiting comments today to 2 minutes. So we're going to move to commissioner comments. And Commissioner Brennan, I'd like to give you an opportunity to speak first. Would you like to make a comment regarding this agenda item? And all commissioners will have 2 minutes to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'd like to request to speak last. Thank you. I'm still working on my comments.
Commissioner Ryring or President Ryring, it looks like Commissioner Corrali's trying to get your attention.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Chan-Corrali. Would you like to make a commissioner comment?
I would, thank you. Thank you, President Ryring. Not for the first time, Commissioner Brennan's conduct was unbecoming and inappropriate for an elected official. And at the Harbor Board's April 15th board meeting, her actions seemed to be an attempt to prevent the Harbor District's business from being done. Her unprofessional and inappropriate conduct at that meeting was rooted in statements that were her opinions, but not the facts. So I would like to present the facts which San Mateo County residents are entitled to and which are public information. But before I do, for the record, my statement of facts is not an attempt to silence anyone on this board. On November 19th, 2019, the Department of Fair Employment and Housing, or the DFEH, finished its investigation of Commissioner Brennan's sexual harassment complaint and sent a letter to Commissioner Brennan and the Harbor District, which Commissioners Lorenas, Ryring, and I received through the Harbor District's attorney. The DFEH concluded and informed Commissioner Brennan that, quote, the Department of Fair Employment and Housing, DFEH, has closed your case for the following reason. Based upon its investigation, the DFEH is unable to conclude that the information obtained establishes a violation of the statute, unquote. The statute referred to in the DFEH conclusion is the Fair Employment and Housing Act, over which the DFEH has primary jurisdiction. The public deserves to know the DFEH's conclusion for Commissioner Brennan's unfounded sexual harassment allegations. The Harbor District and Harbor Board are bigger than one commissioner. The people's business is the #1 priority for all public agencies, including the Harbor District, not the disruption that Commissioner Brennan's inappropriate actions caused at our April 15th regular board meeting. Therefore, I would like to adopt Resolution 20-08 to censure Commissioner Brennan for her disruptive conduct during the April 15th, 2020 regular Harbor Board meeting and ask her to refrain from future disruptive conduct of any kind, so that the people's business can be done, especially during a global pandemic and civic unrest. So I am moving to call for the question right now. Is there a second?
I'm not going to second that because the other commissioners haven't spoken yet. So Commissioner Brennan, I saw your hand up.
I'm not sure if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I requested to speak last because I'm still working on my remarks. Is it okay if I could just please speak last? I assume there may be at least one or two other commissioners who want to make remarks.
Yes, that's fine. All right, let's see commissioners. Any other commissioner comments? Doesn't look like we do have. Commissioner Lorenas, I see your hand up.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, well, first off, I'd like to register a complaint that matters of importance to the district should not be done at a special meeting during the middle of the day. I've said this before and I continue to say this. If you want public participation, you have to do it at a time and give people time to attend. So on this matter at hand, I'd like to say that at our last meeting, Commissioners Mateusz, Crawley, and Ryring approved the policy with explicit language on board censure. I believed at the time, and we see it now, that this was their intent was to set up a structure by which they could censure Commissioner Brennan. And here we are today, with the 3 commissioners intending to do just that. The intent of a policy on censure should not be retaliation. It should be used as a deterrent. It should not be used, as we see here, as an attempt to humiliate, harass, and retaliate against a commissioner. It is an act of aggression against Commissioner Brennan. I am deeply offended by this action and by this board's action. I too have experienced the frustration, the pain, and the fear that results from such actions. Early in my career as a commissioner, and it's continued to this day, I've experienced very similar aggressions from members of this board. Commissioner Virginia Chang Corrali, in an attempt to intimidate me and silence me, used a Public Records Act request for my personal emails. This was when I was new to being a commissioner. She has harassed members of my family on social media, and when confronted and asked to stop, she refused. She refused in front of one of our Board of Supervisors, as a matter of fact. Why aren't we censuring her? I can tell you from experience that when one is confronted with the need to hire an attorney to protect oneself against a personal attack, it is frightening. So President Reining, at the last meeting and even today, you expressed a desire for this board to move forward, to get along with the business of the district at hand, and to respect each other. How does this act of retaliation against the commissioner, how does it achieve this goal? Would we not all be better served if we jointly agreed that board censure is a tool to be used as a deterrent? Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lorenz. Commissioner Brennan, are you ready with your comment? I don't see any other hands raised.
Yeah, thank you. So I just wanted to mention that in response to some of the previous comments, I have never used profane language at a Harbor Commission meeting. That statement is untrue. I have used anatomically correct language to describe the pornography that Commissioner Tom Matoush emailed me. Because the images are pornographic, they can't be shared. The only way I can accurately describe the images is to use proper anatomical language. I understand this item is to silence me. I have never filed a lawsuit against the Harbor District, and it is factually untrue that my actions have cost the district $1 million, as was previously said. That is absolutely untrue. There, in any newspaper that publishes these absurd dollar amounts, is providing untrue information to the public. And if they want to make those types of statements, or if individuals want to continue to make those kinds of slanderous statements, they need to back it up, because they can't. It's factually incorrect. I have been traumatized, terrorized. I've lost sleep. I've lost work. I mean, I could go on and on about how horrific my experience has been serving on this board. But I think I'm just going to leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Commissioner Chang Corrali, you have a further comment?
I do, thank you. I have heard from many members of the public, and they are tired of the bullying from Commissioners Brennan and Lorenz. Commissioner Brennan is not the victim, the public is, and they are entitled to have their business done. That is why this censorship must be approved, and I am now calling for the question. If there's a second.
Melanie, roll call for Commissioner
If someone needs to
Corrali's
second,
motion.
someone needs to
call
second my
question.
motion to call for the question.
I'll second that motion. Melanie, can you take roll call?
Commissioner Lorenz,
No.
Commissioner Ryring,
Yes.
Commissioner Matoush,
Yes.
Commissioner Brennan,
No.
Commissioner Chang Corrali.
Aye.
Thank you. So that motion passes. We were calling the question for the motion and the second that we have on the table to consider a resolution to censure Commissioner Sabrina Brennan for inappropriate conduct during the April 15th, 2020 regular board meeting of the San Mateo County Board of Harbor Commissioners. Before we do the roll call, I do just want to say that I personally find that Commissioner Brennan continues to use the Board of Commission meetings to make personal attacks against Commissioner Matoush regarding alleged conduct that occurred 6 years ago and is irrelevant to the board's consideration of the public's business on the agenda. And I find that Commissioner Brennan's conduct is significantly disruptive to the board's meetings and ability to conduct the public's business. And it takes a toll on all the other commissioners, it takes a toll on the public, and it takes a toll on our staff. So at this time, Melanie, can you do a roll call, please, for the resolution to censure Commissioner Sabrina Brennan?
Commissioner Ryrie?
Aye.
Commissioner Matoush?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
No.
Commissioner Chang Corrali?
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz?
Absolutely not.
The motion passes, and based on this vote, we are recording a formal censure of Commissioner Sabrina Brennan for inappropriate conduct during the April 15th, 2020 regular board meeting of the San Mateo County Board of Harbor Commissioners. And Commissioner Brennan is asked to refrain from such disruptive conduct in the future, including using her time during district meetings for attempting to relitigate matters that have been investigated and resolved. Thank you all. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
Items.
We still have the consent items.
Oh, we have the consent items. I'm sorry.
I made a motion, and that was seconded by Commissioner Matoush. The staff report is in the packet, so they can be read. It's on the website, so I would like to call for the question for my motion to approve the consent calendar, if there's a second.
I'll second that. Melanie, can you do a roll call for the calling of the question, please?
Brennan?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Commissioner Brennan?
Can you reiterate what we're doing? Is this just to prevent us from hearing the consent items? What is happening? Can somebody just point of order, clarify what's happening?
We have a motion and a second on the table to call the question to approve the consent items.
So you're not allowing me to pull the consent items?
I already made the motion to approve and there was a second. And so now I'm calling the question, and that's what this motion is about. The consent item staff reports are in the staff report, which I have read, and it's available to the public to read as well. So this motion is to call for the question, and there's a second.
So just to be clear, you're not allowing me to ask questions about these consent items? Okay.
I've made the motion to approve the consent calendar. And so now we're calling for the question.
No.
Commissioner Chang Corrali?
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz?
I unmuted. Hello?
Commissioner Lorenz?
You're unmuted, Commissioner Lorenz.
Yes, I want to know, I'm not clear on this. So now we're taking a motion on here, the consent items, is that right? Hello? You should mute Tom Matoush, I can hear his voice.
So where are we? Tricia?
Yes.
I'd like you to weigh in here if you don't mind. So we have, it seems that we have a motion and a second to approve the consent items. And Commissioner Brennan wanted them pulled, and Virginia Chang Corrali has called the question. Please advise.
So Commissioner Chang Corrali, I think, asked to call the question on considering the consent items. Typically, consent items are considered together if there's no need for discussion. You might just want to consider them separately just to give Commissioner Brennan the opportunity to ask questions, and just it might be the safer way to go.
Okay, I'm fine with that. So you have your hand raised, Commissioner Brennan.
Which item are we on?
These are the consent items that you pulled.
We take items one at a time. So I just want to know what item I can ask questions about.
Take your pick.
I think that you have to tell everybody what agenda item we're on per the Brown Act, so we know which item we're talking about.
So we have two items on the consent calendar today. The first one, item 1, is the Pillar Point Harbor Master Office Alterations Project Construction Support. This item would authorize the general manager to execute a change order to the John Matthews Architects Construction Support Professional Services Agreement for $7,255.05 to complete the construction administration and support phase of the Pillar Point Harbor Master Office Alterations Project, and to approve an increase in capital project appropriations of $7,255.05.
Okay, is John with us so I can ask him the question? It looks like he's here. John, can you hear me? Hi, John, can you hear me?
Yes, Commissioner Brennan, I'm here and I can hear you.
Okay, thanks. So I was wondering if you could give us a brief update and then also the timeline for the project, if you had any info on that.
Yes, we've just had, actually today, we've just had an inspection by the county, which it appears I've just got an email during this meeting where it appears we have passed the inspection. We are now going to be moving forward with a punch list walkthrough. So the project is nearing completion.
Okay, great. So what do you think for timing? Like, any idea?
It will depend on, as we do the walkthrough. There are also a few outstanding issues with regard to some of the handrails, et cetera, that were delayed due to the COVID. So I can't say at this time when we will be moving into the building and when the project will be accepted by the district until after we've done our walkthrough and punch list, and those challenges have been rectified to our satisfaction. I would anticipate by the end of the month this project should be complete.
Great. Are you, or shall I say, has the project been modified at all to protect staff from COVID? Like, have there been any changes that will help with social distancing, or has that been a factor? I'm just curious.
Yes, we had already planned to put up a barrier between the front desk person and the members of the public that might come in. So that barrier will, it's a clear plexiglass barrier with a slot so that monies or paperwork can be slid through that slot. And then barriers that do not allow the public into the rest of the staff work area.
What about the workspace for staff? Like, is there a ability for us to distance people safely from each other in the work environment, or how has that been addressed?
Yes, the office and workspaces won't be inhabited unless and until we are able to keep a minimum of 6 to 10 feet from each staff member.
Okay, thanks so much. I really appreciate the info.
Thank you, Commissioner Brennan, for all your support throughout this project, as well as all commissioners.
Thank you. So do we need a motion to approve this consent item? Since it was pulled?
I move to approve.
Commissioner Chang Crowley?
I'll second that.
Great. Roll call, Melanie?
Commissioner Brennan,
Aye.
Commissioner Chang Crawley,
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryring,
Aye.
Commissioner Matoush.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries. The second item pulled from the consent calendar by Commissioner Brennan is consideration of a commercial activity permit for Tanker City Sport Fishing at Pillar Point Harbor. This motion would approve the commercial activity permit for Tanker City Sports Fishing at Pillar Point Harbor until December 31st, 2020, and authorize the general manager to execute the commercial activity permit. Are there any comments about this pulled item? I don't see any hands raised. Are we ready for a motion to approve? Commissioner Chang Crowley?
I'll move to approve this item.
Commissioner Brennan?
Hand was raised to ask a question of John Moran.
Go ahead.
John, can you hear me?
John, can you unmute? John?
Yes, Commissioner Brennan, I can hear you.
Okay, thanks. Hey, yeah, just the name caught my attention, Tanker City Sports Fishing. It sounds like they've been with us a while, but I wasn't familiar with them. Is this a new company or one that we've had at Pillar Point Harbor for a while?
It's a current tenant that operates a privately owned charter fishing business. We've not had room for, we were only allowed 6 OUPV, 6-pack, 6-passenger or less charter vessels at both Oyster Point and Pillar Point, 6 at each facility. So we've just informed this individual that we did now have a 6th position available. So he completed a commercial activity permit application, and we're hearing that today.
Great. Please pass on, welcoming message from the board. And it's exciting to have new businesses at Pillar Point Harbor, especially during this very challenging time. Thank you.
Will do.
I think I have a motion and I just need a second for that agenda item. Melanie, roll call on this pulled item, please.
Commissioner Chang Crawley, Commissioner Chang Crawley,
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryring,
Aye.
Commissioner Matoush,
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan.
Aye.
The motion carries.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that. Roll call, Melanie?
Commissioner Brennan,
Aye.
Commissioner Chang Crawley,
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryring,
Aye.
Commissioner Matoush.
Aye.
Have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.